Very good evening. Hello and very good evening to all of you. Welcome to our portfolio review session, the first, in fact, in a while. We've been doing this in a couple of sessions earlier, but it's been a while, so we are very glad to kick off this session. And this session is, of course, brought to you by Your More Design School, where we offer masterclasses and certification courses. So do check that out. We have a great panel today. So what we're going to do is we're going to discuss a couple of points with these panelists who are into design, who are very seasoned designers, and then we'll probably get on into reviewing a couple of portfolios, and then we'll have a Q&A session. So do keep posting all your questions and comments into the YouTube stream you're on right now or wherever you're watching it, and we will pick it up and we will ask you all your questions for you. So to start off with, I think we have a great panel, and the first member would be Gunjan Thapa, who's a creative director at VSense. She's been working with a couple of tech startups, and I think she's been doing great, and she's been with Yomo since a while. So welcome, Gunjan. And coming in next, we have Ameya Nayak, who's a experienced designer at ServiceNow. He's a very seasoned designer with nearly 10 years of experience coming in from IDC Bombay. So welcome, Ameya. Once again, it's very good to have you on a panel yet again.
Thank you.
And finally, we of course have Babu Kaladhar, who I keep introducing every weekend, I guess. Babu, I think our audience are very familiar with you, but a quick introduction. Babu is currently joining us from New York. He's the chairman and founder of Yomo Design and UX India. He's very much mentored a lot of people. So glad to have this panel, guys. Firstly, let's kick this off with a couple of questions which a lot of people have been asking us. A lot of people want answers for, right? So for somebody, especially who's joining into UX for the first time through Your More Design School or any other course, what would they have to consider to get into UX? Can we start this with Gunjan? Thoughts, please?
Yeah, so basically when you are getting into it, like I think the basic starts with your interest. In case like you're looking after any courses or something, there are a lot of courses on your design regarding UX. So you can go through the course list and like pick one and then like go through it. I think it is very helpful, the kind of mentor group and the community everybody has created here. So it will be very helpful for everybody. I think picking one and going through it would be great.
Great. So Ameya, what do you think from your perspective, why should people consider UX and what should they be looking at to look at UX as their career option?
I think it also depends on when you are starting. So we have a lot of folks who have been in development or are in an industry already, who have been working and now they want to get into the UX field, right? As again, someone who is starting fresh, they are graduate or they are in schools and they are thinking about what do I next? How do I get into design, right? I think for people who are already in the professional field, they probably have exposure to, what kind of design is happening in their organization. And one good way is if they have a design team within their organization is to get connected with that team and identify mentors for them who will help them guide through. And then we have these courses that are there which help them, while they are in a working environment, these courses can help them get onboarded in a more a career oriented way, that they want to make a thoughtful switch to design. And probably these courses will come very handy into getting into the UX field. If you are someone who is in school, then probably you would want to, or you are thinking about a design career, start identifying schools and design schools that are teaching design, right? There are lots of schools that are there. Going through the education is a really good way, because that's a way where you get to understand a lot of theories behind design and you get a lot more time to experience it yourself, right? Of what this field could offer, and it could give you different paths. So these are the two things probably I would ask someone to do if they want to get into design.
I think that's some great advice, and thanks for that. I think we also have Nancy who's joined us. Hi, Nancy, welcome. so we just started off, and I'm going to go to Bapu next, and then probably come back to you, Nancy. So Bapu, has just Ameya
Yeah.
pointed out, there are a lot of people coming in from the development area, or maybe some field which is not very similar to the design field. So what advice do you have for them if they're switching into UX?
So one of the wonderful examples I can quote right now, we have in the group, Gunjan actually, she's not from design background. She is a tech background and moved to design, and she's doing really great. So we don't have to have a design as a background when you want to get into UX, or in fact, you want to get into any of the design areas, but you need to have a design aptitude. First of all, you should understand whether you're able to solve or able to identify problems. So these two are very important for anybody who wants to get into design. So there is a kind of misunderstanding is going on. So you just have to get into UX UI, and then you make money. That's how you want to get into design. That's definitely money follows, but you should actually have a bit about aptitude about design, and also have a right mentor to help you through all your questions answered, and also participate in discussions like this, and understand from different sources, and understand from the schools actually offering short webinars, and go to conferences, and then you decide. Don't go by okay, these guys are charging less, so I just join and go. So don't, that should not be the kind of ad stick for you to decide on whether to go with that school, or whether to get into design. But have the clarity that I'm able to find a right problem, and I'm able to solve it. So then rest actually follows. Yeah.
I think that's some great advice there, Bapu. And in fact, I mean, we've spoken about this a lot, and that's something we've very closely been trying to implement at our UMO Design School, where we actually start from the basics rather than a lot of the other folks out there who are completely missing out on the basics, but just selling UI UX
Yeah.
as a fancy term and intimidating people in. But I think that's good advice. So start from the basics, and then slowly
Yes.
get yourself up there. So I'll just jump back into Gunjan, and Bapu just spoke about how moving from a tech background to a design background, although might be challenging, but it's not so tough. There are so many resources available and so many things for you to go through and get there. So how did you go about that experience, and what advice do you have for people doing that?
So basically, I think if you're coming from a development background, I am working with the development team as well. So basically, it is more to do with how you think. Like if you're coming from a development background, you are more connected to like logic of the code and stuff like that. If you are interested in UX, UX is also a little similar. You build up logic in terms of how the psychology of the user is working, and then you move slowly towards it. And in fact, it becomes really interesting. Like it becomes like an architecture for even like building the code ahead, because it builds up functionality based things as well. So it transitions like that, that the basics as in the functionality that you're using, you're trying to build logic to create some kind of developmental piece or like code for some kind of functionality. It translates into that, but more into like physical aspects of things, like an overview and a big picture. So I think
I
that
think true, very true. I think you've drawn some great parallels between development and design, and hope that there are some takeaways from that. So I know there are some, you guys are very experienced folks, and you do a lot of hiring in your companies as well. So by getting into UX, I think one of the key things which people look for is getting a cool job or getting a good pay, right? And for people who are in that position, I would probably want to know what's the experience like, and what are some of the steps they can take to get a UX role. So Nancy, can you give your thoughts on that, please?
Yeah. So, okay, maybe just few thoughts because I had been associated with multiple organizations, and because I'm closely working with aviation industry, so one of the very important, I would say, aspect that we look in a UX designer is the way they think, because aviation industry is more of a system oriented. It is not just a single user. I would say there are multiple users involved, And when you think of a solution, any digital solution, it involves how do these multiple people interact with each other. So that is where a system level thinking is very important. And when we talk about UX there, we look, obviously there are multiple portfolio that we receive, but then the main stress is about the process that the person has gone through. And it's not just about obviously a fancy UI. I would say that is also important, but yes, to begin with, how did you come to a particular solution? Who were the people that you were really targeting? Because there are solutions not just for an individual user. It might involve multiple people involved for that solution. Have you considered that? And what was the thought behind that solution? So I guess that would be a very primary or a key thing that we really look into the portfolio. And I guess that is what is sometimes missing, because as you said, UI UX is a very fancy term these days, and people focus on preparing their portfolios around having a fancy design. But where does that design come from? That is what people need to start focusing on, I guess. So yeah.
Very true. So, Amay, I have a similar question for you. So, Nancy spoke about, I think we're missing a couple of steps here, but I don't know, for people, I think joining this call, a portfolio is something you require to get a UX role or any design role. That's how hiring managers basically judge your work or evaluate your work, and that's how you eventually go on to get a UX role. So, Ameya, so as somebody transitioning into a UX role with a couple of years of experience, how do you go? Maybe not a traditional design experience, maybe a development experience or a business experience, right? How do you go about judging their portfolio? They're still new to design, but they do have a couple of years put into the industry.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So one, if they are in industry, they are there for a couple of years and they do have a portfolio, right? Uh, then I, while looking at the portfolio, I try to look at things that how they have structured themselves. Probably I'm not expecting what level of clarity they have or what level of quality they have in the designs itself, because they are in that learning phase, very early phase. But I'm looking at what level of research they have done before they build their portfolio. Have they thoughtfully structured their portfolio? Does the portfolio tell a story about their journey, why they want to do it? Some of their project work, does the project work clarify in terms of what was that person's role in that project, uh, and what were their learnings from that project? It should have definitely have screens that are there so that they can give out a clarity in terms of what all things they did through that project, what all they understood. And at least for the early hiring manager, the first screening, there is some need for them to look at that, the kind of direction that they are going, right? Uh, but having said that, if there is someone who is from a development and wanting to get into design, uh, and does not have a portfolio, I would ask that person that, what we do is we sometimes find a candidate great based on their attitude and aptitude, and then we give them a design test, right?
Mhm.
A design test that is generic, and which we hope to see that how they're approaching the problem, and that kind of helps us to evaluate a person in terms of what are their design skills. And I think that is another way where someone from a non-design background or someone who has not spent professional time in industry in design can still approach and apply for design jobs. uh, I think that becomes very helpful.
True. So, just adding on to what Ameya just spoke about, this is a question for you, Babu. So, when you're looking at multiple profiles of these candidates who are transitioning into a UX role or who are getting into a UX role very recently, how important is a certification course, or how important is having a design degree for you when you're hiring such candidates?
I think as Amay was talking about very important things here, like whether you have a certificate or not, we're going to have have a test. So certificate, it doesn't make much importance here, because maybe first the recruiter actually would see that okay, you have something in place, you've gone through some study, but that's only for that moment, to maybe to bring you to the table for the people who are actually really going through the portfolio or going through your resume, and also they want to talk to you once you actually qualify through the test. So, but looking at from the way the certificates are now being generated, you just pay some couple of rupees or dollars, and then you're given a certificate. So that's going to be actually problematic, in the coming days, because for a small job, when I say small job, means like, I wanted to have somebody who can do wireframes, and that is a small job, in fact. So when I say another job is UX designer, now which position you want to apply, because there is no clarity right now whether when you go through the portal, you read an article, or you go through an assessment and you become a kind of designer now. So are you getting into wireframing, or are you getting into designing? First of all, the clarity is not there, and we call it as UI UX. I don't understand why we are actually bringing two words together. That's one thing. And once you actually apply this, and you see that 1,000 people apply, because now everybody is a designer, and you pay $10, you are a designer. So what is going to happen is, slowly you lose the importance for the certification, because everyone is a designer and you come up with nice certificates. So as Amaya was suggesting that, right? So the filtering happens. First you go through tests. So immediately you know that how much aptitude you have, how much design understanding you have, and how do you approach. That is approach actually comes only when you qualify in the test, first of all. And then once you get filtered and you have a couple of people left with real aptitude. So the question you're asking, certification is good for you get into the interview board, but have right place to get the certification. Don't just go by, you are paying less so that I get certificate, should not be your criteria. Understand who is actually offering that, and are you learning the right thing. Learning is the most important thing than having certificate. And I also see that some of the design schools, it doesn't mean that you have a design school background, but you are not a good designer also. So at the same time, you are not from design school, but you can be a good designer. So that is actually important to have, only to the next level, but immediately all the senior people immediately know that how much experience you have. Are you doing a fake thing, or is it right certificate or not, or you do have the right aptitude or not? People are experts, immediately can catch you. So, but if you have an honest and authentic foundation of design, it's easy for you to get into the next level. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Babu. I think a lot of heads nodding in the panel when you spoke about a couple of things. So that's great. So I'm sure we have a lot of more questions and more discussions to dwell into, but we've already, I think, been nearly 20 minutes in. So let's switch gears and let's move into looking at a couple of portfolios. Let's take very quickly. We have a couple of portfolios, so let's try and review them in a very quick sort of a manner, if that's possible, to be able to give quality feedback at the same time. I hope I'm making sense here, but let me just share my screen first. Okay. So I hope my screen is visible to you. We'll start with this first portfolio, which is from Manvita M, if I'm spelling her name correctly. To the panel, what do you guys think by looking at this first landing page, landing image sort of a thing?
So, according to me, I think it it looks good. It is very calm and all, like peaceful color palette. But the text right on when you see it, it is a bit mixing with the background. So that is like UI based thing and UX copywriting thing. I think the title needs to be a problem statement, more like solving a problem statement. More looks like more of a feature.
Great. So this is. I don't think this is just a UX portfolio. I think this is more of a graphic design, visual sort of a portfolio as well. So
Yeah.
let's maybe get into the first project, and maybe we can have your thoughts on this. So it's called On My Mind. And when you scroll down, you have an overview, timeline, challenge, research, key findings. So, Amaya, what do you think of it being very text heavy? What's your thoughts here?
I'm okay with it being text heavy. Probably, could you add like, is this portfolio of someone who is experienced, who is very new? Are there this own projects? I think a lot of it
Mhm.
depends on. I see that there is a lot of structure. Uh,
Okay.
what I would want to see, if this is a team effort, then I would want to see what has been their role and what are their learnings through it. A text heavy portfolio is okay as long as it is telling me a story and it is keeping me engaged with addition of these images, right? I think in any portfolio that you design, think about even that event as something that is a user centric way, that somebody is reviewing your portfolio. How are you going to give them the information that you want to do, and how are you going to keep them engaged? So uh, I think it's a fairly structured. If this will tell me the story, if I dig in detail, I would be happy. But probably it needs a little bit of clarity before it gets into visual style. So if this person is a visual designer, then probably they want to jump into the graphics and visuals of it. But for any interface interaction design portfolio or product designer portfolio, I would want to see the story and some of the imagery in terms of the pages, screens that they have created. But probably it looks like this person is a graphics person,
Correct.
and
Mhm.
they are
So I think
using.
correct. I think a lot of your views on this may be right. I think text heavy is okay as long as they're conveying a story. But my question to Nancy would be, Nancy, I mean, it's my assumption that a design manager or a hiring manager might not take so many minutes if they want to get as much information as possible as quickly. So, what are your thoughts
True.
on that?
Yeah, exactly. As in you just hit to the point. So basically, especially as a manager, when you're reviewing portfolios, I would say there are multiple profiles. So you have to consider as, or as when you're sending your portfolio, it has to be really catchy in terms of either the content, in terms of, I don't know, the narration. So I
Mhm.
personally feel having text, obviously it is good, as in you need to explain it, but text consume more time to to review your things. So it is easy to make it more visual. So as a person, as a recruiter, sitting on this side of the table, it is easy for me to see what you've done quickly. And I don't know, personally, if the profile is of a visual designer or a graphic designer, it should be more visually represented. So that is what I would rather expect. So, and as obviously said by Amaya, as in having story, having understanding what the person is, what the role is, what the experience is. Obviously, those are some very important criteria. But yeah, just to add, I would say having it more visual so that it quickly grabs my attention out of other 10 portfolios, I would say, and it clearly tells me what you have done. I would say I would give you more points to that particular person compared to other profiles. So yeah.
That's great advice. So I think Manvita, if you're listening in, I think that's some advice for you on your portfolio. And thanks for sharing your portfolio with us to be reviewed here. So we'll quickly move on to the next one. We have Varun Kumar, who's a design specialist at HCL Technologies. So I'm going to pick up this dashboard just so that it gives us a little bit of variety. And Bapu, what are your thoughts on just seeing this first image?
Yeah. So actually, to answer the other question, Kishore is also asking that because it is, I think it's coming from Behance, if I'm not wrong.
Correct.
So he's asking that whether portfolio or you prefer website to Behance or Google Drive or PDF. So, so from my side, I'm okay to have PDF or website because actually that gives me more understanding about what project and what you are actually, what kind of role you're aspiring for, and also what the process and what is your role in the process. I think all these details actually it gives. So, for example, if you ask me this, show this image and what do you want me to look at? Is it like what is the context? Without having a context, I can judge on an image like that. And you are actually, am I looking at your prototyping skills or visual design skills, or are you telling a story there? It's not clear. And Behance mainly good for your visual design skills. You can see that how are you organizing the content in a nice manner, but I would actually prefer to have a story. How did you arrive to this? What was
Correct.
uh, your research, and then what was your role, and then what's your thought process, and all those things I would love to know about it.
So although it might just be a UI sample kind of a thing showing your tool skills, I think a context or some sort of a narration would be helpful for the
Yeah.
recruiter to be able to better understand.
Hmm.
Cool. I think that's some advice for you, Varun, there. Let's switch
Yeah,
to our
I
next
think
portfolio.
one thing I
Sure.
would add is when you are a designer, context is the key, right? So even if it's a UI sample, set that context, because then you are losing out. I mean, I would evaluate someone is like, is this person thinking user centric on all things that they do, right? So definitely context is a must. Do not just add screen, add a short, probably you can just add one screen to explain what this is all about, even
Correct.
within Behance, and let the viewer know that what is this about.
Great. So the great advice, I guess, from for Varun here. So I hope he'll be able to use that to improve. Next, we have Alisha Anjuni from Hyderabad. Thanks for sharing your portfolio. So you have this very visual sort of a thing here, and that's about it, right? So what do you guys understand from this? Or let's maybe take a step back and you see, as a recruiter, you get this link, right? You have one, two, three, four, five. You have five projects over here. What do you decide to choose, and what do you decide to dwell into? How do you make that decision?
So, if I have to talk from how in a West how it works, a recruiter most of the time they are not designers. They actually responsible for getting people for this, a team of designers or design head and other designers actually going to review them. So these are the people actually at the funnel. They want to see the impressive things. So first of all, they don't understand, if whatever that you're explaining, they just try to see, oh, it looks neat. So let me shortlist. Then the journey starts. At least I'm talking from West. I'm not, maybe other rest of the three they can answer from India context perspective. So when I look at that, when I see that somebody sent me that this person is good, and then I first step is you know everybody has got less time attention. So I will not be able to spend 10 minutes to review a portfolio and decide with very quickly. So what is happening here is you should actually hierarchically keep it. So first step is make it look neat, decent enough to understand. And then if I'm more interested in, then second level I go to details and read and understand. So it's not that having only good looking screens actually will get you a job. It's not that. Have that, and then second level explain it, explain the context, story, process, and everything. Then I know I'm interested in. I see that this person really done good job, and I go to the next project in your portfolio. And if I see any inconsistency, then I know that something is wrong. So have the consistency in your story, and you keep updating your. Somebody is saying, I'm a beginner." No, never think like that. Beginners have got beautiful portfolios. Don't pity yourself. You keep updating it, and it's okay to lose your job, or will fail. You can always have another attempt coming in. So keep updating your portfolio, and then observe how others are doing, and also ask a feedback. Once you're done, ask any feedback for my portfolio, and sometimes you get very good feedback, and keep improving your portfolio.
Great. I think this applies to Alicia as well. So context would help the design manager able to better understand your work here. So let's switch gears and let's move on to the next portfolio. We have designtrends.co.in. This is actually sent by a individual, although it might seem like it's a agency, but it's actually sent to us by an individual. So what do you think of this kind of an approach where you're branding it as something else, and they're not able to understand who it is? Any thoughts on this?
So basically, like the way I see it is, can you please go to the homepage, or like the first landing?
Sure.
Basically, this is a website, I believe, of somebody, and like just going through it, like the first thing that I saw is like they're trying to showcase a service list at the beginning of the landing itself, but like there is no proper relation to what they have done. I feel like if we go on to the portfolio now, like
Sure.
so it is more to do with like so it is showing a lot of variety. Like even in the previous portfolio that I saw, like it was more in terms of variety of it. But in like everybody was saying, like narration to your projects is required. Like for example, these images are like for example, you have to hover over what the project is about. So there's no
Correct.
clarity right on when you like land on this. So the images are also quite small. So like there's
Yeah,
no
I think the
clarity.
light box is quite yeah.
Yeah. So the narration, the whole like I think with portfolio, everybody should like have this thing in mind. Like you will have to explain your process as well, like
Correct.
relating to the previous portfolio that you showed and this one as well. Like this is
Mhm.
more website, like but still the titles and all the context is a bit.
True.
Um,
So I think we are developing a clear trend of the context not
yeah.
being very clear. So I think that's some advice for whoever that person was who named their website Design Trends. So let's go to this portfolio, which is again clearly Sai Kiran says he's a graphic designer and a 2D animator, right? Although most of the roles these days, people are looking to get into a UI, UX, or some sort of that kind of a role. But there is an equal importance for graphic designers being hired. So, what do you think of this portfolio?
Maybe one point I can add on my side. It is good
Mhm.
to have a specialized, I would say, name to the role because, as you said, yeah, people are moving towards UI and UX. But then, lot of companies are also looking for a extra skill that you possess. So, as you said, okay, the person
Correct.
can illustrate, and that would be a good value addition for the company. So, I would suggest to all anybody who has the skill of doing an illustration or good at some sort of digital illustration or design anything, that is good to add in your profile and add some of these like what you're just showing. So I believe this particular screen talks about that yes, you have an illustration capability and you're good at it, and compared to other projects I feel in the portfolio, you might have some UX related portfolio or project or a UI related. So since we were talking about context, set the context, talk about okay, this particular project is only talking about UI, and then showcase that work. Similarly, if you're talking about an illustration, just talk about illustration or drawings. So that makes it clear that one particular person has varied skill set, which will then it's easy for the recruiter to evaluate to see how that person would be bringing in value addition to the company. So
Yeah. I think
True.
roles.
And correct. And this name, I think, is different from what is being showcased here. So I think that's not a. I don't know what's the story behind, but I think that needs to be explained. Like whose work are we looking at right now?
that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. No, actually,
Sorry, I think I interrupted somebody.
so what I liked here is first, when you open that, you should know what he is actually. Most of the portfolios straight away start
Mm.
with your projects. Instead, I should know that this guy is good at maybe UI design, or is good at UX, or is good at visual design or graphic design. As Nancy was clearly pointing out, you don't have to be an artist to become a UX designer, but if you have an extra talent, you should actually showcase that, so that sometimes you don't announce it for, but you always see that an extra talent definitely helps. Sometimes it actually, it gives you triggers new ideas, and your talent will be appreciated a lot. So keep that if you are interested in photography, for example. But don't mix up with the main portfolio, but you have it as a separate thing. What else you are good at? Yeah, I think it looks like this guy got a good illustration skills. As
Correct.
Rohan is pointing out, I don't have the context actually. What is it done? Maybe I couldn't read it from far, but yeah, must be there.
So great work here, Parag. Thanks for sharing your work with us. We'll move on to the next portfolio by Faraz Dalal, who is a communication designer. And I'm going to go ahead and just click on the first project. So it says Sale Finder, finding stores with desired offers made easy. So, Gujan, what are your first thoughts on looking at this?
So basically, I think this is a story of the case. Like, can you go down a bit more?
Sure.
Okay. So I think it is like one of the like better ways a person a candidate could like put on their portfolio. Like he's put on all his process from the beginning, like what all he's done research on user cases and even user flows. Like so, I think it is a very good approach towards UX specifically, if I see it, because
Mhm.
yeah. So
So,
at the end of the project, is it like a whole UI as well?
yeah, I think there are quite a decent number of
Yeah,
screens shown over here.
yeah,
There's a short prototyping video.
yeah.
So,
I
Maya,
think
what are your thoughts on the whole process of this empathy map and personas and this user flow? How relevant is it for you to maybe, let's say, go through this user flow and understand what is what?
I think first thing I like is first this person has considered probably legibility. Last few
mhm.
portfolio and the site that we saw that legibility, readability of the
Correct.
text, contrast ratios are very important. So first, at least give me that when somebody is
Mhm.
looking at a portfolio. I It becomes very helpful for me to the kind of process this person has gone through and
Mhm.
understand uh, the stages that are there, what were the findings across those persona, how they build the persona, and content within that. But then after that, I do not see how this findings translated into design. I suddenly see designs, right? So if
Correct.
you identify frustration points, if you identified pain points, do
Correct.
identify on this like how you are solving those problems. Design at end
Correct.
of the day is solving the problem, right? So I would
Mm.
want to know that, else you are sending me on a goose chase of finding those connections that this was the problem you talked about, and probably somewhere it is solved. I need to find that, and I may or may not make that effort. Highly likely I
Correct.
may not make that effort of finding that connection, right?
Very true, very true. So I think point is here. I think what you're, if you're saying it rightly, the insights you've discovered, you'll have to point out how you've converted them into an experience or into a UI or whatever it is, right? And just by following the process, I think it's good. But like you said, you might not go through the effort of going through and understanding how it got converted into your final design.
Yeah,
So
I think
that's
uh, there needs to be a
yes.
section in the beginning, like once the
Mhm.
store, like the cover is complete, and like a small section of your roles, like Nancy was mentioning earlier, and like
Mhm.
what problem did you solve? Like a small section of like what the client is doing, what the client requested, what problem it was. I think that small section right on the face when you start a portfolio, it is quite helpful.
True,
Like
that makes a lot of sense.
that would add a lot of value to this uh, portfolio.
Great. So let's switch to the last portfolio, and then I think we can get into the Q&As for the last 15 minutes. So we have Subham Das, who's a graphic design student at Chitkara University in Kolkata. So let's go ahead with his first project of micro interaction prototype. So, what do you guys think of this?
I think
One
what
point.
Bapu said,
Yeah,
sorry, go
Maya,
ahead,
go ahead.
Nancy. Okay, so I think what Bapu said earlier was very important, right? Bring that focus. The profile starts with graphics and things. Is that your main objective, or is interaction your main objective? Define that. Like if interactions is the something that like is a secondary added skill, then probably push up the put of your content and things that are related to graphics above. I actually like the clarity that the person has set in the profile, like student of graphic design, but
Correct.
then probably it suddenly starts with interaction. I would want to see probably graphics, unless this person is interested in interactions, right? Interaction design, then probably they would want to add that to their profile, so that I understand this person comes from, the intent is this, right?
Correct. And I guess this would, I think it would be better served if you call it a portfolio rather than a micro interaction. I mean, a prototype instead of a micro interaction prototype.
Yeah.
So let's move into one more project. This is, I think, a bit more detailed. It's called renteasy.com. And you have a design brief, you have background, what am I trying to build? And he talks about process. What do you guys think of this representation of the process here?
I think I like that he has taken some freedom to visually make it different. Uh, we see the same diagrams, double D diagrams, very boring kind
Correct.
of all day. So this does add a refresher. It probably gives me insight into the mind of this person, that probably this person is someone who can push the barriers if given a chance. They would like to explore. So I wouldn't go too much detail whether this is right, this is wrong, should we be doing that. But I like the fact that he has taken a graphic take and that's probably his background. So I think this is good way to differentiate yourself by representing something that we are seeing every day in a different way.
That's a nice insight. You have, then you move on, then you have a couple of data points with some numbers, then you have a graph, then you have user problems. So you can please keep talking about your thoughts as and when we go through. So there's a lot of text, you have your user problems, user outcomes. So this is a very critical and a very important, screen to be a part of your portfolio to be presented, right? What do you guys think of this particular screen? Like, how are you going to read through all of this to better understand? Are you able to, is the focus on this good enough? What do you guys think about this?
I think over a period of time today, my feeling is that the quality designers are probably lesser, and I have been started to spend more time reviewing to find those strengths in these designers, right? So I do dedicate extra time. I would ideally not want to do that. I would want to have a portfolio that tells me easily. But today we have a lot of it becomes very difficult to differentiate portfolios. To I look at if this person is a really good designer, does this person have the attitude and aptitude? So if there is a text, probably I'm okay. If there is a quality, I like to see user problems written somewhere. I will spend more time through those, and probably the solutions what that they are talking about than just few screenshots. So
Yeah.
I don't
I
mind
think
spending.
the outcome has been abruptly come out after the problem statement. There's no outcome mapping like this. It's just
True. I think you just have a couple of, you know, some sort of an experience map. That's what they call it. And then you go down to your creative workflows. So I think the point some of you earlier made about legibility, I think that's very much evident over here.
yeah.
So what do you think of this wireframe? You ultimately came to a wireframe sort of a stage here, and any
So
thoughts on how this is
yeah,
designed?
so I think one thing very important for a designer is making things simple is more difficult part. It's always difficult to make things simple and neat because you have so much to talk. But the everything, if you're trying to dump over here, and you will lose the attention span. So as I told you that you can keep them into different layers. If you want to give away all your research and study everything there, maybe the first page can actually have a simple, and then say no more about it, so I can go, and if I'm really interested, I go and read it. Or first thing is learn to make things simple. It's not that easy. That's the most toughest thing to do. As a designer, that's the most important to learn. The more you show, it doesn't actually help. It actually gets you will bore people, and then I skip it and go to the another one. But if you tell a compelling story, then I don't mind getting into more details and know about it. I don't even have a problem to call you or call you for interview and ask more details. That's what my opinion is.
Great.
Nancy or anybody who was trying to say
Yeah,
something.
I completely agree with you, Babu. So, as what you said, having a compelling story is one of the important things. Just one point to add here. If you look at the
Mhm.
profile, it says he's a graphic designer, right? And I
Correct.
presume that, okay, this particular person wants to move from graphic designing to UI or UX, I would say. Okay. I
Correct.
need to see that translation somewhere. So the first skill that you have is graphic design. So any of your work which you're putting it here should have graphic design skill. So the way you put down your content, the way you put down the text also, anything, you need to have that skill. As in that is the first thing. I would not be judging you maybe on your UX skill first, on the research you have done, but yes, I would judge on you on your graphic design skill because that's your core. So, and that is where you need to show your translation. As in, I guess people try to, as in people tend to forget that. If you're just working on the research, you just put down your content there, but you have to also show that skill. See, you need to be different from what others are doing, right? And you
Correct.
should make sense to what you say to your profile. Make some logic. So that is where it is too contradicting. You call yourself graphic designer, but your work is not really designed well. Then I'll question your work. So that is where you need to think.
So I think that's some advice for people who are looking to switch from graphic to UX or UI as well. So I think we've had a very interesting session so far, looking at nearly 6 to 7 portfolios, and I hope they've got some feedback to work with now. Thanks, guys, for all that. And I think there are quite a few questions coming in. But before we jump into that, what are your thoughts on what we just saw? Maybe a quick roundup of the couple of portfolios. Any takeaways for you?
Yeah, actually, from looking at that, everyone has done great job. But what I would suggest is portfolio itself is a product. You have to think that when you are designing a product, you have an iterative process, right? You keep taking feedback and then improvise on it. Don't take this as a kind of okay, my commenting on somebody's portfolio. Don't get hurt on that side of it, but take this as a positive feedback and try to improvise and make it more, um, neat, clean, and tell a story. You always have to tell a story. So it's like think like a film, like a product and a film. These two are metaphors you can take. And if the film is not telling me a right story, I don't want to watch. Right, it fails. So try to think from that angle, not adding a lot of screens and making the pages look visually beautiful. It's not that enough. You have to tell a story. What is that, and what is the context? What you are in that context, and how did you solve it? All this story I should understand when I'm looking at. And most of you have done a wonderful job, but I'm always telling you that there is a scope for improvising, and please take it as a positive feedback.
Anyone you would like to add to what you just saw here with the portfolio reviews?
Yeah, just one point. See, everybody, I guess, is applying for UX design role, which obviously, if you expand, it talks about user experience. And when you're showcasing your portfolio, you're defining an experience for the recruiter at the end. So, how successful you are showcasing your portfolio, it depends on how good experience to give to your recruiter in terms of, again, as Bapu said, in terms of storytelling, in terms of how your content is placed in your portfolio or projects, in terms of storytelling. So yeah, as in, if you're successful enough to showcase your story in terms of giving a best experience or good experience in showcasing your portfolio, I guess you're successful there. So just keep in mind. That's it. Yeah.
So I think a key point to address here, where Nancy, I think you spoke about moving from a graphic design sort of a role to a UX design role, right? You said about how you would look at your graphic skills first, and then you look at their other skills. So, as somebody transitioning, what do you suggest to them to go about going through the transition?
Um, about the transition, I would say one a very strong point as a graphic designer you have a eye for a design, I would say, which not everybody has. So I would say you're already one step ahead than others. So make use of it and try to showcase that in all your work. And of course, when it comes to designing a UX, I would say, or doing a UX activity, those are few things that needs to be learned. And as we spoke about, what type of certification or courses that needs to be taken, as in that needs to be evaluated well. But yes, as a graphic designer, I would say that you're one step ahead. And do not try to, as in, don't forget to make use of it and showcase it. That would make you different from other crowds.
So my next question would be for Ameya. So just to take a step back, why? I mean, if you are looking to switch to a UX role or a UI role from a graphic designer or an animator sort of a role, why should you even do that? I mean, why do you think a lot of people are doing that, and even industrial designers for that matter, a lot of people are getting into UX roles? So is there a need for firstly to do that, and secondly, if you are doing that, what should you maybe talk yourself through why I should do this?
I think the need, it could be very personal. But if you are thinking about that, you want to make this move because you have heard there is a lot more money, then probably that is not going to last long. Okay, because the industry is going to evolve. There are going to be a lot more designers and a lot more people in the field, and then it will go through that. So first figure out if that drives you. And if you look at design, then it's all about solving problem. Do you enjoy solving problem? Do you have an eye to identify a problem? Right. So get a hold on that do you want to make that switch. I also advise that give it a try. There's no harm in trying out, giving it a try. And I think a good way to do that, if you are in an organization that has design, then try to get onboarded on that team. Also try to find a mentor, right? Mentorship is extremely crucial when you're talking about design. It's almost like, if you just going to go online and self train, there is a very high likelihood you will train yourself in the wrong direction. So get hold of mentors, try to find mentors who can mentor you. And I think through UMO, UX India, or any other social forums that are there within India, right, I think a lot of folks are available. Finding those mentors will be helpful for you. So make that evaluation. You would talk to a lot more people who are in that field to figure out what actually that feels like. The grass is always greener on the other side, right? So you would want to know what is the actual experience that these folks have, and what do they do in their day-to-day life, what that life feels like for them. So try and get all those kinds of. And I would just suggest, if you're early in career, just give it a try. Go ahead, try it out. If you don't feel that it works for you, come out of it.
Great. That's great advice, I guess, for people looking to transition from an existing design role to a UX or a UI sort of a role. Thanks for that, Ameya. So I guess we spoke a lot about portfolio, building portfolio, and presenting your portfolio. So the step which comes after that is actually you go and you probably have a sit down with somebody and you present your work and you talk about what you've done with your design career so far. So especially for people starting out newly, what tips would you give for a good UX interview session? Maybe Gunjan, you can start with your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so basically, on continuation with what Ameya just said, I think while you're just starting out, I think you should just stick to one field when you're doing it. Like build up your interest. If like even if it is like difficult, because everything is difficult in the beginning, just stick to it, be good at it, and then like shift towards another design situation. Because as designers, I think we have a very big area of inspiration. Like people into design also look into architecture, people into design look into a lot of things from fashion and etc., other sorts of creative fields. But in the beginning, when somebody is just starting out, I think like graphic or even UX or UI separately, just stick to it and like be really good at it for the beginning, and then transition. It will help the other field also be better for you. Yeah.
Great. So, Nancy, anything to add on the interviewing part for new designers out there?
I guess pretty much is covered as what Gunjan said it. I really agree. In industry today we have various fields related to design, as in be specific on what you want to be. Like if we just talk about UX or UI, we still have multiple profiles, as in there's something called UX research, there's something called UX design, there's something called UI design, and there's specific roles to prototyping also. So as in look into what exactly companies are looking for, and if you are really interested in these specific profiles, you can develop your skills around it and be good at it. So yeah, I think what Gunjan said completely makes sense.
Great. So, I think we are almost nearing the end. I think we have a couple of more minutes to take a few more questions. So, from your experience, all of you, I'm assuming, have hired a lot of designers throughout your career. So, maybe can you give out some top tips or some suggestions to probably make their portfolio better, or maybe you can talk from your experience as well. What are the kind of portfolios which caught your attention or which caught your eye, and you then went on to work in your teams?
Yeah, I think some of the points I take from all three of those panelists, co-panelists. The first thing is industry is rapidly changing, evolving and rapidly changing. So when you are getting into the UX as your mainstream, don't focus on just tools. Have the foundation. Design foundation is very essential, and that actually helps you to, even if you're getting into voice interface for tomorrow, you should actually have a design foundation that actually easy for you to get and move into a different area or a different vertical. And also having one strong area. If you are visual designer, be good in that. And if you want to get into UX or UI separately, but have one strong area, so that you always come back, and if anything it's not working, you can always come back. And also looking at from recruitment process or looking at the portfolios. So now you see that, right? In this call itself, we had around 6-7 portfolios you've reviewed. So think about, like, if I'm reviewing 100 portfolios, how do I stand out of them? So portfolio is not putting things in a nice looking graphics. You also have to think about how will I be unique when I'm presenting my work. And also when you are talking to the a recruiter or maybe a panel of interviewers, be honest, don't fake. It's easy to catch what you are saying. Easily you can understand where you are coming from, and try to quote or try to tell story about how did you solve it. It's not that, don't tell them that, no, I used green color, red color, this is how, it's not. That is easy to understand. So tell story which we can't understand from the portfolio. You don't have to explain what it is already there. So be honest, answer from your experience. And sometimes you have to agree. If you haven't done it, you can say, yes, I haven't done it. It's okay to do that. Yeah, I think I should give it to others to speak.
Yes, maybe we'll go with Nancy. We could talk about some of your tips for building a better portfolio.
Okay, so I would just quickly go back to what Bapu said. Being honest. that is actually very, very key when when you're giving interview, because it's very easy to catch on, when people are faking about projects or faking about their roles in terms of what was their contribution in the project. One tip I would like to give is, not everybody has, a very detailed UX projects life done in their life, and that is okay. So what I would suggest is, pick up a problem in real life you might have seen, or anywhere online, and you can make your own personal project out of it. So you need not wait for a project that you have worked on, but you can make your own project. So basically, first it will show that you're proactive to think about working on these projects by yourself. Second, it will give you end to end experience of how should your approach be around projects. So I know, from my experience, what I've seen, a lot of people who are just beginning their career in design, they don't have enough projects, and it's okay. There's obviously nothing wrong. How will you have it? You're quite early into the career, right? But try and make some of the projects which will showcase what your thought process and your skill sets are. And I think that should be enough for for the recruiter to know how you are, as in terms of skills and your thought process. So I guess this would be one of the major tips I would like to give you.
Great. So I think we have a minute left. So quickly, maybe Gunjan and Ameya, you could give away your top tips for people viewing this video.
I think I like what Bapu said. It's a movie, it's a film. So even if you are someone who does not have many design projects, right? Give me a view into who you are and what you can do. Some of the best organizations today hire for growth mindset. We hire for people who want to learn, who have that hunger to learn. So if you have one or two projects, showcase those, and then for a designer, it's important to look at how you are looking at your environment. There are a lot of social problems around us. Pick anything that you align to, a cause that you align to, and build a solution for that. That will give me a view into who you are and what you're trying to do and some of your skill sets, right? There are opportunities. Its point is to you for you to find and tell your story. That how are you going to tell me that what are your skill set, and towards the end of the portfolio, add more about who you are as a person, because I would want to understand you beyond your design skills, right? How do you fit, how do your culture is, and how do you think about collaboration, working with people, and things like that. So tell me a story.
Great. Great. I think that's some great advice from Ameya as well. So Gunjan, final thoughts on this before we close.
Yeah, I'll make it very short. So I would say, like, learn basics of storytelling. I think because storytelling in itself is very advanced as well when you go to filming and video editing and all. But story telling would help you in all your processes, most of them. So like giving a role section, giving a process of how you came to the outcome. I think that's about it. I think basics of storytelling is important.
Great. I think we've established a very clear trend here. I think context is key and storytelling skills are important when you're presenting your portfolio. Also keep in mind who is reviewing your portfolio so that you make it easier for them to judge and easily stand out among so many hundreds out there, if I was able to quickly summarize that. But I'm currently sharing my screen because I think this is very relevant to what we do right now at UMO Design. Since we spoke a lot about building portfolios and getting hired and the job hunting process, I think we do kind of collectively curate all the jobs which are out there, some of whom are our partners who work with UMO. So we post all the jobs here. It's this URL. You go to UMO Design/jobs and you can kind of apply. And if you're a recruiter watching this, you can as well post a job free of cost with us. And this will just help our community members understand the design roles out there. We have tons of jobs. I think you can go and check it out and you'll be able to clearly figure out what is what. That's a little bit about what we've done so far. And thank you so much, all of you, for joining. It's been great fun. Babu, final thoughts?
Yeah, so I think Shubham actually asking a great question. So recruiters like their work, but when they come to know that they are students, no, we are looking for experienced people. So what should I do? Okay, I just wanted to ask anybody in the panel, what is your answer for that? I think you're
I
on
think
mute. Yeah.
okay. I think if the thing is about that we want someone to work full time with us, then I think probably you are stuck there. But if that person is only looking to find that, whether you will be able to deal with the pressure, probably you could ask that person that, can I talk to the hiring manager? Can I talk to a designer and give me a chance and opportunity to showcase my work? And that is all I ask. uh, just try to get your foot in the door by whatever means you can. If they think that they like, probably, and if that's a good kind of an organization, probably they'll give you a chance that, okay, go ahead and present it to somebody and then we will take a call. So probably that's there. If they don't at all say anything, then they don't at all, then probably that's not also a good organization, right?
So from
Yeah.
humor design perspective, one thing what you're doing is we're trying to bring in a forum design heads and also design mentors. So we wanted to actually take, we want to connect these early entrants and also the freshers and also students with these people directly, because I see there's a gap here. Most of the recruiters, they don't understand you. They only go by what they've been said, but we're trying to connect that through the forum. I hope we're going to close that gap very soon. Yep.
Any more thoughts? I think Nancy, you were saying something earlier. We cut you off by mistake.
No, that's okay. I was just adding to what Amaya was saying. As in, even I have come across a situation where kids are very, very talented. And yes, just because of number of experience, and based on company policy, it's even the recruiters cannot really go ahead with, hiring them. One very good solution, at least that I have seen people doing, and even we are now trying to practice this, take them as an intern, as a long-term project, as in, 6 months or if possible 8 months. That will actually help the student or that person to, first of all look at the industrial experience. It will also help the recruiter or on the company side to see, yes, the guy is really capable enough to do work and able to handle company pressure or blah blah blah. And then that can slowly move towards to the full-time employment. So I guess that is what is the best practice as of now. So to answer to what your question, yeah.
So I'm going to ask you one question, all three of you. Would you like to give internships for our humor design students?
Why not? We can look for it.
Yeah, why not? Like, we have started this year on the journey because we are very early into design. Only a year or two we are setting up the design team, and we have started this year. First time we have picked few interns. So I'll definitely connect you with the design operations team who is looking to expand that, and I'm hoping this will become a bigger practice.
Yep.
We'll add a lot more interns every year.
So I'm actually forcing all our design folks to open some, internship opportunities for people who are fresher students, so that actually, we can, happily can fill up that gap, and they get, as Nancy was saying, they at least get some industry experience as an intern, and easy for them to get into a full-time role.
Yeah.
I think we are exceeding almost here.
We are correct. I think we're 10 minutes above our initial time, but that's okay as long as we're answering some key questions. We'd love to continue this discussion going. I think we should definitely plan another session as a follow-up to what we're doing here. We'll definitely plan and try and make that happen. But thanks again for being here on a Saturday night and Saturday morning, I guess, for Babu. So thanks so much, guys. I think there are a lot of takeaways from here, and I hope all the portfolios reviewed have some feedback from you guys, and thanks to them for submitting their portfolios to be reviewed as well. Thank you, guys. We'll see you soon again.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye.